My blood turned to ice as I stared at the scene unfolding on our front lawn. Dozens of black garbage bags lined the edge of the yard. Some were torn open, spilling my possessions into the patchy grass. My gaming monitor leaned precariously against the mailbox, exposed to the elements. And there they stood. My mother holding her phone like a weapon, filming the whole spectacle, while my sister Olivia extended her arm for the perfect selfie angle. And there she is, back from another business trip, still owing $8,000 in rent, Olivia announced to her followers. Watch closely, folks. This is what entitlement looks like. My brother Paul paced like a bouncer, and when he spotted me approaching, he smirked. He deliberately kicked one of the bags, sending my books skidding into the dirt. Finally, he muttered. The family freeloader is out for good. My chest constricted as if someone had flipped a switch and drained all the air. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. My name is Rachel. I'm 29 and a professional welder. This is the story of how I reclaimed my family's legacy when they tried to erase mine. Mom raised her phone higher, her voice polished and performative. Rachel Vaughn, 29, living in my basement for months like a parasite. No more. This is your eviction notice, public and permanent. The neighbors stood frozen on their porches. Mrs. Jenkins across the street clutched her dog leash with both hands, her expression unreadable. Mr. Torres filmed from behind his hedge. No one moved. No one said anything. I bent down slowly, picking up a hardcover book that had slid from a torn bag. The cover was bent. I straightened it, set it aside, and picked up the next item. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just kept loading my car piece by piece while Olivia's voice narrated every movement like she was hosting a reality show. I had only been living with them temporarily after losing my job at Maroc Industries. Despite paying what I could and contributing to household expenses, they treated me like an intruder. Just yesterday morning, Mom had made me breakfast before I left for a 2-day maintenance contract in Brookings. Toast, over-easy eggs, and the exact right amount of hot sauce on the side, just like she used to do before my welding practice in high school. For a moment, I'd let myself believe it meant something. I'll only be gone 2 days, I'd told her, sliding into the chair across from her. Just a maintenance contract at the mill in Brookings, but I start the new job Monday. She'd nodded, stirring her coffee slowly. That's great, honey. It had sounded like a reflex, more than a response. Her eyes hadn't left the phone beside her, even when I smiled. I know it's not a big company like Maroc was, but it's solid pay, full-time benefits. I'll finally be able to pay off the last of what I owe you. Still no eye contact, just a distracted hum as she typed something and tilted the screen away from me. Now I understood why. The job had wrapped up faster than expected, and I'd returned home 6 hours earlier than planned, eager to crawl into bed. My hands still smelled like hot steel and burnt rubber. Familiar, grounding. Instead, I found my life scattered across the lawn, my family broadcasting my humiliation to the world. As I closed the trunk gently, I turned to face them one last time. They were still filming, still grinning. Enjoy the show, I said quietly. You'll be hearing from me soon. I had just closed the back door of my car when the porch door slammed open. Dad marched down the steps, face red and jaw clenched. Without a word, he flung a set of keys toward me. They hit the side of my face with a dull thud and landed in the gravel. Take your junk and get out, he barked. You're not our daughter anymore. Real adults don't mooch off their parents at your age. I blinked, rubbed my cheek where the metal had struck, then leaned down to pick up the keys. I didn't flinch, not in front of him. He stood there, arms crossed, waiting for some dramatic meltdown. Olivia had her camera angled for a better shot. Paul was pacing again, grinning like this was a game he'd already won. I opened the driver's side door, climbed in, and shut it with deliberate quiet. Before starting the engine, I looked through the window at all three of them. Mom with her rehearsed indifference, Olivia with her manufactured disgust, Paul with his practiced cruelty. Then I looked at my dad. He didn't break eye contact, but something flickered. Confusion, maybe, when I didn't break either. I turned the key, pulled away slowly, and didn't look back. I drove aimlessly for a while, the familiar streets of the neighborhood blurring together. Eventually, I ended up in a grocery store parking lot, headlights off, engine running, both hands gripping the wheel. I still had Justine's number in my phone. We'd stayed close since college, and she'd offered her spare room when I first lost my job. I texted her explaining the situation. Within minutes, she replied with her address and a simple message. "Come over, doors unlocked." 20 minutes later, I pulled into the visitor parking at her apartment complex. It wasn't until I reached her apartment, her porch light still on, that I remembered the envelope. It had been sitting at the bottom of my filing bin for over a year. Thick paper, no return address, just my name in my grandfather's unmistakable handwriting. He'd given it to me at the hospital a few weeks before he passed. "Don't open it unless things get bad," he'd said. I never thought I'd need to, but now everything inside me said, "Open it." I set my overnight bag on the floor of Justine's apartment, pulled the envelope from the side pocket, and laid it across my knees. Justine made tea and set it on the table beside me, then slipped into her room without asking questions. She knew I'd talk when I was ready. I stared at the envelope for a long time before opening it. The flap came up cleanly, like it had been waiting patiently all this time. Inside was a folded letter, several notarized documents, and a business card from a law firm downtown. The letter was short, handwritten. "Rachel, if you're reading this, it means they've done what I feared. I couldn't protect you from them while I was alive, so I'm doing it now. I've placed part of the house, the lake cabin, and the shop building in your name. It's all legal, all documented. You don't owe them anything. Not apologies, not silence, not guilt. This is for when they forget what you're worth. Grandpa." The room blurred. My fingers trembled, not from sadness, but something sharper, something like clarity. The documents backed it all up. A living trust. My name was listed next to percentages. 40% of the family home, 50% of a lake cabin in Coos County, 35% of the commercial building my dad's business operated from on Riverdale Street. The business card read, "Michael Landry, Estate and Property Law." The next morning I called. His receptionist hesitated until I mentioned my grandfather's name, then offered me a last-minute appointment that afternoon. Mr. Landry's office was in an old stone building near the university. Mahogany furniture, quiet ticking clock, walls lined with legal volumes. He remembered me immediately. "You used to come with him to meetings," he said. "Always brought that little red sketchbook." I nodded. He reviewed the documents carefully, flipping through with the kind of precision only decades of practice could build. When he looked up, his expression was unreadable, but his voice was firm. "It's all valid. The trust was finalized before your grandfather passed. They can't legally remove you, sell without your consent, or claim ignorance. If they've been collecting rent or taking loans against any of these properties, they may have a bigger problem than they realize." I sat back in the chair, my heart still pounding. "I'm ready to proceed," I said. He leaned forward slightly. "Then let's begin." The first text came that night. Olivia, 8:47 p.m. "Hey, hope you're not mad. The stream wasn't meant to embarrass you. It was just content. You know how the algorithm is." I didn't answer. They still had my number from before. I hadn't changed it yet since all my job applications had that contact information. By morning, there were 12 more messages, 2 missed calls from Mom, a voicemail from Paul. "You're overreacting. It wasn't even that serious. You know how she gets. Just come back and talk like an adult." I forwarded everything to Mr. Landry. By midday, Dad's number lit up my screen. "Dad, 1 p.m. We need you to sign a few things. No drama, just paperwork. No explanation, no apology, just instructions, like I was an employee who had missed a deadline." Mr. Landry responded on my behalf with a brief formal notice that all future communication should go through his office. He CC'd their family lawyer. I turned off read receipts and let the silence do the work. I spent the next few hours organizing the few things I had salvaged. Justine had cleared a shelf for me, and I stacked my books there. Less than half my collection, but enough. I folded the clean clothes, placed the monitor carefully by the desk, and stared at the dent in its frame. Then I picked up a pen. It had been years since I kept a journal, but that night I opened a blank notebook and wrote a single line. They only listened when I stopped explaining. The words came easier after that. Not rage, not revenge, just observations. What I saw in their eyes, what I didn't see in their hearts, what I had mistaken for safety, what I would never unsee again. By the time I closed the journal, my phone was still vibrating every few minutes. Olivia's voice memos, Paul's passive-aggressive guilt trips, Dad's insistence. I turned the phone face down and let it buzz into the mattress. They were loud. They had always been loud, but this time, my silence said more than their shouting ever could. Mr. Landry called 2 days later, his voice calm but clipped. "We've finished reviewing the income history on the properties," he said. "Your parents and brother have been collecting rent from the lake cabin and the commercial building, none of it disclosed to you." I closed my eyes. "How much?" "Just over $50,000, 3 years of tenant payments. Your share wasn't even acknowledged," he said. Acknowledged? Like it was a clerical oversight. We both knew better. By the end of the day, certified letters had gone out to the family's legal representative outlining the exact amount owed and my ownership percentages. Mr. Landry had also contacted the banks involved with the business loans tied to the commercial property. If they had approved financing without all stakeholders' signatures, they were at risk too. The silence that followed was different this time. Not stunned, not wounded. Calculating. 3 days later, Paul showed up at my new job. It was a quiet Tuesday afternoon. I had just clocked out for lunch and was heading toward the back parking lot when I saw him leaning against my car, arms folded, phone in hand. I kept walking, didn't stop. "Rachel," he said, tone too casual. "You got a minute?" I kept the keys in my grip, ready. He stepped into my path. "We need to talk." I looked him straight in the eye. "You're trespassing. Move." He leaned in, voice low and tight. "You're tearing the family apart over some technicality. That money wasn't yours. You want to play this lawyer game? Fine, but it won't end the way you think." I didn't flinch. "Step away from my car." A couple of co-workers appeared by the exit. One of them called out my name. Paul turned to look, then stepped back, muttering something under his breath. "I won't say it again," I said, pulling out my phone. "This is harassment. You need to leave." Security met me by the door minutes later. By then, he was already gone. Back inside, I filed an incident report with the front office and sent the footage from the parking lot camera to Mr. Landry. He replied within the hour. Noted and logged, proceeding as discussed. Paul must have found my workplace from my social media. I hadn't updated my privacy settings after starting the new job, and my profile still showed where I worked. I made a mental note to fix that immediately. Later that evening, I changed all my privacy settings and removed my workplace information from my profiles. They had made the first move. Now they would learn what it felt like to play defense. They came on a Thursday evening just after sunset. I heard the knock first, sharp and impatient. Then the voices, too many of them. I walked to the door without opening it. The security camera feed on my phone confirmed what I already suspected. All 4 of them. My mother clutching a tissue. My father with arms crossed and jaw locked. Paul leaning against the wall like this was beneath him. And Olivia standing off to the side, half watching the door and half scrolling her phone. "Rachel!" Mom called out, voice cracking. "Please, honey, we just want to talk. This has all gotten out of hand." Dad stepped forward. "Open the door. You're acting like a child." From behind them, Paul muttered something I couldn't hear. Olivia didn't look up. I didn't answer right away. I wanted them to sit in the discomfort, let it soak. Dad knocked again, harder this time. "We are your family. You can't just shut us out over paperwork." I spoke clearly, loud enough for the mic to pick up. "All future communication goes through Mr. Landry. You've already been informed of this." There was a pause, like they hadn't expected me to respond at all. Mom's voice came next, thinner. "Now, you don't have to do this. We can work it out, just the 5 of us. We'll delete the videos. We'll fix it." From the feed, I watched Olivia glance at her phone and tuck it behind her back. She wasn't here for peace. She was here for footage. "I'm not discussing anything without legal representation," I said. "If you remain here, I will contact building security." Dad's face darkened. "So you're hiding now? Behind lawyers? You told me I wasn't your daughter, remember?" Paul looked away. Olivia started typing something. Mom wiped at her eyes, suddenly out of things to say. They stood there for another minute. Then they left, slowly, without a word. They had found my new address through the certified letters that Mr. Landry had sent. The return address had my apartment number. I made a mental note to discuss using only his office address for future correspondence. The next morning, I called Mr. Landry and asked him to use only his office address for any future mailings to protect my privacy. As soon as the hallway cleared, I locked the deadbolt and opened my laptop. Mr. Landry had just emailed me a new file marked Settlement Negotiation Initial Draft. The offer came 2 days later. Their attorney emailed Mr. Landry with a proposal. They would transfer full ownership of the lake cabin to me if I agreed to forego any claims on the back rent or future income from the commercial building. Mr. Landry didn't even hesitate. "We reject," he wrote back. "And we restate our original terms." The cabin was worth less than a third of what I was owed. They thought I'd take the bait, let them off the hook in exchange for peace and a symbolic hand-me-down. But I wasn't interested in symbolism. I wanted acknowledgement. I met with Mr. Landry the next morning and laid out what mattered to me: a formal payment plan for the unpaid rent, a third-party property management company to handle all future income, and a written admission of financial misrepresentation. "I want it in writing," I said. "And I want it signed." He nodded once. "Then that's what we'll demand." While negotiations crawled, their cracks began to show. Olivia lost over 5,000 followers in a week. Someone from high school had recognized me in her stream and started posting receipts. The video had gone locally viral, and several of my former classmates had commented, sharing their own experiences with my family. A few of her sponsors dropped her. She deleted the eviction video, but the internet doesn't forget. Dad's business took a hit, too. One of his clients saw a clip and decided not to move forward with a project. Then a loan application got flagged. When banks started reviewing ownership documents, the trust surfaced. Mom stopped texting. Paul sent one angry email that Mr. Landry forwarded without comment. Olivia tried calling twice. I didn't answer. When their lawyer finally responded, the tone had changed. Less aggressive, more careful. They agreed to everything: monthly payments, third-party oversight, and a written acknowledgement signed by all four of them. I read the document twice before signing. At the bottom, just above my name, I added a sentence of my own. "Truth isn't betrayal. It's what happens when the performance ends." I sent it back and waited. The final part hadn't happened yet. They still had one more thing to do. 3 weeks after staying with Justine, I found a small apartment just 10 minutes from my new job. The rental application process went smoothly. My new salary was enough to qualify, and the security deposit came from my first paycheck. I moved in that weekend, grateful to have my own space again. The apartment was small, but it was mine. 1 bedroom, uneven floorboards, and a draft in the kitchen window that whistled when the wind picked up. But the lease was in my name, and the first month's rent came straight from my paycheck at the new welding job. No shared space, no borrowed time, no one filming at the door. 2 days after I moved in, the envelope arrived. A check. The first installment of the back rent they owed. Paper clipped to it was a folded note written in my mother's handwriting. "We hope we can put this behind us and be a family again. Love, Mom." I stared at it for a long time, not because it moved me, but because of how much it didn't. There was no apology, no ownership, just hope that I'd forget what it cost me to finally be left alone. I placed the check in my drawer. I didn't reply. That night, while unpacking the last box, I found my old external drive. I plugged it in out of habit, scanning the folder labels. College papers, photos, invoices, and then Grandpa Wave. I clicked play. "Hey kiddo, if you're hearing this, I guess I'm not around anymore, but I want you to remember something. You're going to be okay, even if they never say they're sorry. Some people only value you when they can use you. And when you stop letting them, they call it betrayal. Let them. You just keep being you." I sat there for a while, letting his voice fill the room. No more shouting, no more silence to weaponize. Just his steady warmth echoing through a borrowed speaker in a place that belonged only to me. I pressed save, backed up the file, and placed the drive in the drawer next to the check. 2 different legacies side by side, one that demanded I be less, and one that promised I was already enough. The check represented the first of many monthly payments they would make as part of the formal agreement. Our legal relationship would continue, but our family relationship had permanently changed. The divorce from my family was final, signed and notarized with that settlement agreement. It was over. Before you go, here's a quick bonus for sticking around. If you love learning and growing like I do, you need to try audiobooks. I've got an exclusive deal with Audible. Your first month is completely free. That's access to over 500,000 titles. Zero cost to you. All the details are waiting in the description. Don't miss this one.